Right, good evening ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Licensing Subcommittee hearing. Councillors Gelderbloom, Murphy and Pound are forming the subcommittee, and members have nominated Councillor Murphy to chair the hearing. Councillor Murphy, please continue. But just before you do, I just want to say that we are, this is subject to a recording, a webcast. So if you would prefer your image not to appear, then you can use the public gallery. Thank you.
Right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming on a night when England is supposed to be doing the business tonight. But anyway, let's hope we get through this reasonably quickly. Miss Sultan is our legal representative this evening. Please can you remind the subcommittee of its administrative function and explain the procedure to be followed?
Yes, of course, Chair. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Yes, that's fine. Okay. So I'd like to advise members and all those here present today that in determining matters before it today, the Licensing Subcommittee will be exercising an administrative function. The process is broadly similar to the Magistrates' Court. However, these proceedings are intended to be conducted in informal manner and in accordance with the principles of natural justice. For the benefit of everyone here present, I would now outline the procedure that will be followed here during the hearing today. Councillor Gelderborn, Councillor Murphy and Councillor Pound constitute the Licensing Subcommittee. They're behind me. Councillor Murphy has been appointed the chair, you've just heard that, and the chair invite all parties to represent themselves. That's what will happen in the beginning. After that, the licensing officer will present his report related to the application. Members in the subcommittee may ask questions. Other parties here, that means the objectors and the applicant, their representative, may also ask questions. After which, responsible authority, chair will invite them to make any submissions they wish to. Again, members will ask questions or may wish to ask questions, and also other parties may also wish to ask questions. You will then have objectors who are here present, who have indicated that they wish to speak today. The chair will invite the objectors and other parties who wish to make representation to address the subcommittee. Members may ask questions where appropriate, and others may also ask them questions. Not yet, sorry, Chair, just a little bit longer. The applicant's representative will be invited by the chair to present their case. Members will ask them question. Again, other parties will have the opportunity to ask them questions as well. We will then move to closing submissions. So the licensing manager, responsible authorities and the applicant, the chair will invite all of them to make any final closing submissions they wish. The members will then retire, subcommittee will then retire to consider their decision and will seek legal advice where needed at the time of their deliberations. After which, the final part, the subcommittee will then reconvene the meeting, announce their decision, and then would bring the meeting to a close. That's it. Thank you, Chair. Over to you.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest to be made this evening from anybody? Nope. Righto. Before I ask the licensing manager to introduce the matters before us this evening, could I ask all persons to introduce themselves, starting with the licensing officer? It should be okay then, Mr. Leonard.
Here we go. Sorry about that, folks. Good evening, Chair, members, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Dave Leonard. I'm the Licensing Officer for Brentwood Council.
Hi, my name's Zach Byrne. I'm here from Environmental Health on behalf of the officer who put in objections to this application, Rebecca Page.
And good evening, members. I'm David Dadds. I'm counsel for the applicant, and to my left is the representatives of the premises, and I will be speaking on their behalf.
Thank you very much.
I'm Zoe Borman and I'm the clerk this evening.
Now, as there is obviously a lot of you sitting there, I would like
Thank you, Chair. Just for benefit of clarity, everyone behind there is on the list of representation, so everyone entitled to speak. Right, good evening, folks. This report is to determine an application received from Mesra Essex Limited for a new premises licence at Mesra, Worley Road, Great Worley, CM13 3AE. The Environment Health Officer, Ms Rebecca Page, has made a representation on behalf of Brentwood Council as a responsible authority, and a further 22 representations from 10 households have been received from residents living locally to the premises. Many relate to historical events that have occurred at the location previously, and all of them raise public nuisance and antisocial behaviour concerns arising from the proposed extended hours in an otherwise quiet residential location. With regards to this, the committee will be asked to consider the report and appendices together with any oral submissions at the hearing and determine the application in line with the options open to the subcommittee under the Licensing Act of 2003. And the options available are to grant the application in full on terms and conditions contained in the operating schedule, along with any applicable mandatory conditions, to grant the application modified to such extent as considered appropriate in order to satisfy any relevant representations and to promote the licensing objectives, or to refuse the application in whole or in part. In regard to this, licence holders are required when offering any licensable activity to ensure that they promote the licensing objectives at all times. The operating schedule of the application contains details of activities applied for and the control measures that the applicant will have in place to promote these objectives. Such measures, where appropriate, will be converted into enforceable conditions should any licence be subsequently issued. And the 4 licensing objectives that we refer to are the prevention of crime and disorder, the prevention of public nuisance, public safety and the protection of children from harm. And any representation must be able to demonstrate that on the balance of probability, the application in its current form will fail to adequately promote one or more of these licensing objectives. No other matters may be considered. Now, in regards to this application, on the 21st of April 2026, an application was received from Dad's LLP on behalf of Mesra Essex Limited for a new premises licence at Mesra, and a copy of the application together with supporting layout plans is attached to Appendix 1. The premises operated as the Horse and Groom Public House until September 2015, when it converted into the Fat Turk restaurant. It is situated in an exclusively residential location which has since seen a number of homes built directly opposite. A copy of the current premises licence, together with a set of OS street maps and images to better identify the location, is attached to Appendix 2. Just for benefit and disclosure on that, Chair, the OS maps, you'll see if you read carefully, are actually dated 2023. They were the latest ones I could get hold of because the chap that deals with that within the council is long-term sick and I've had no response. So if you go to OS map on page 55, you'll see a big space opposite the car park, which is now full of new houses. Hence the reason why there's a number of photographs attached to hopefully just reflect that. So with regards to the application, the applicant is seeking to provide the following licensable activities: the supply of alcohol on and off the premises from 10 a.m. till midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and 10 a.m. till 1 a.m. Friday and Saturday into the following mornings. The performance of live music and playing of recorded music, again 10 a.m. till midnight, Sunday to Thursday, 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. the following morning, Friday and Saturday. And the provision of late night refreshment is 2,300 hours till midnight on Sunday to Thursday and 2,300 hours till 0100 hours Friday and Saturday into the next morning. As I said, in addressing the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives at Part O of the application, the applicant proposes a schedule of 14 conditions that will be attached as conditions at Annex 2 should a new premises licence be granted. As we heard here, the Environmental Health Officer, Ms Rebecca Page, has raised concerns regarding the proposed hours for regulated entertainment, which have the potential to give rise to public nuisance, particularly in terms of noise breakout and the impact on nearby residential receptors. She states that the application is not currently supported by sufficient information to demonstrate how noise arising from the regulated entertainment will be effectively controlled and mitigated. And Ms Page has been in contact with the applicant, but as renovations at the premises are still ongoing, and her concerns regarding the potential for public nuisance remain unresolved at this time, Ms Page has put a representation at Appendix 3. As you've heard from young Zach Byrne here, he's an EHO who's covering Ms Page while she's on annual leave. Further to this, there's been a further 22 representations from 10 households that have been received from residents living locally to the premises. Many relate to historical events that have occurred at the location previously, and all of them raise public nuisance and antisocial behaviour concerns arising from the proposed extended hours in an otherwise quiet and residential location. Redacted copies of all these representations have been attached to Appendix 4. Just to follow on and to complete the report, Chair, I've put a couple of sections from the Statement of Licensing Policy for Brentwood Council that may have influence on you with regards to Section 22(1). Licensed premises have a significant potential to impact adversely on communities through public nuisance that arise from their operation. The licensing authority wishes to maintain and protect the amenity of residents and other businesses from consequence of the operation of licensed premises, whilst recognising the valuable cultural, social and business importance of that premises provide. And then applicants will be expected to demonstrate in their operating schedule that suitable and sufficient measures have been identified and will be implemented and maintained to prevent public nuisance relevant to the individual style and characteristics of the premises and events. There are also a couple of sections from the relevant sections from the Secretary of State, the guidance there at 5.1, but that is the report from the licensing team. If there's anything I can do to assist, happy to take questions.
Chair, but could I, before I do that, is it possible that the lights could be turned up? It's in between, so it would help me to see better. Yeah, of course. Thank you. But yeah, I can tell. Yeah, very helpful. Yeah, thank you. Officer, I do have just a couple of questions. I'm sure that you have attempted to be even-handed in your report, but could I ask, is there a reason why, when you've referred to the licensing policy statement and to the Secretary of State's guidance, you haven't put any of the provisions of guidance that would support the premises? It seems that you've only put in stuff which is against it. So I'll give an example. Under 1.8 of the statutory guidance, it talks about that it's important to recognise economic growth and that businesses have a positive contribution. You didn't mention that. Another example is under the statutory guidance, it says that each responsible authority is responsible in their own right as an expert to comment. So you haven't commented on here that particular paragraph, particularly where the police have not raised any objection, nor has the licensing authority made any objection, or planning. And I'm just wondering, have you been even-handed in your report? Is there a reason why you haven't included some of those extra provisions? As I understand it, your role here today is be neutral and be even-handed. And I don't mean to be any disrespectful, I'm just asking why that's not been that balance.
Yeah, that's fair enough, Chair. No, these are the standard ones that I'll generally put in when I put a report together, which gives guidance to the committee with regards to things. It isn't supposed to be to provide any bias. I think there is one part in there where it does actually say that the when we go on there that whilst recognising the valuable cultural, social and business importance of such premises provide. So I'm not trying to sway either way, but giving a bit of guidance. Clearly, when the committee retire, they've got access to the whole of the Statement of Licensing Policy, as well as the Secretary of State's guidance, and I'm sure, as very learned people, you will be guided accordingly on that. In respect of the application there, as I said, with regards to this, I suspect the application is that the applicant will show the measures they've done, or the additional measures they're doing to promote the licensing objectives, and I know Mr Dads is very good at doing that.
Thank you. I'll start by reading my colleagues' comments in full, because I think they're quite good. Although I will caveat to say there has been some updates since these were written, as they were written back in May, and we have had some conversations with the applicant since then, and I'll add that on at the end. Environmental Health have reviewed the above premises licence application. At this stage, concerns are raised regarding the proposed hours for regulated entertainment, specifically live music and recorded music, until midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and until 1 AM on a Friday and Saturday. These hours have potential to give rise to public nuisance, particularly in terms of noise breakout and the impact on nearby residential receptors. The application is not currently supported by sufficient information to demonstrate how noise arising from regulated entertainment will be effectively controlled and mitigated. In particular, the following details have not been adequately addressed. 1. Proposed noise control measures, e.g. sound insulation, noise limiter systems, lobby arrangements, etc. 2. Predicted noise levels and an assessment of the impact at the nearest noise-sensitive receptors. 3. Operational controls, including management of doors and windows, use of external areas, and a dispersal policy. 4. A noise management plan. In the absence of this information, Environmental Health is unable to determine whether the licensing objectives for the prevention of public nuisance will be upheld. With this in mind, Environmental Health recommends the following: reducing the hours of regulated entertainment, and or the appropriate conditions, including submission and approval of a noise management plan, installation and use of a noise limiter, keeping doors and windows closed during regulated entertainment, save for access or egress, implementation of a patron dispersal policy. Environmental Health has been in contact with the applicant, and a site visit will be arranged once renovations are complete to discuss the above further. However, given that the consultation period is concluding, these concerns remain unresolved at this time. So as of last week, myself and Rebecca Page were able to visit the premises, although renovations have not been completed yet. And I think at this stage, it's removed some of our concerns in terms of what's been raised here. As it seems that the applicant has shown that they are competent and they are experienced in the industry, and that there are a lot of benefits that could be brought through this proposal. However, and I should say as well, the previous premises, one of the conversations I remember having with the old owner about this premises is that it's got a massive benefit because it's fully air conditioned. There isn't a need to open doors and windows for customer comfort or whatever. So in terms of containing noise, that's already built in, and that's something that really we like to see a lot from premises moving forwards. It's not always financially feasible, but in this case it's already there, so they can benefit from it. When we met with them last week, there was some confusion as to whether or not any of the windows, particularly in the downstairs area, were going to be opened at any time, because we got different answers from different people. But if that could be clarified at this stage, whether or not those are going to remain closed fully, or if they are going to be open, that's obviously going to determine our thoughts. And if that is the case, I mean, it would be nice to have that as a condition to say that all of the windows should be closed, subject to, unless there's an emergency, say for example if any of the kitchen extracts aren't working for health and safety reasons, etc. We've also spoken since the meeting about the development of a noise management plan and a dispersal policy. That's something that we would like conditioned, and the details of which are something that we can discuss with the applicant at a later stage, making sure that policy is approved by the local authority before they start operating. I think the only doubt that remains after that is whether or not the proposed hours of operation are excessive, particularly in terms of the live and recorded music. This is something that I'm sure there's going to be mixed results with other licences across the borough as to what a standard for the closing time should be. My only concern at this point is the later that you want to have the music, let's say that we are able to control all of the live and recorded music until the proposed hours, this is still going to cause potential issues with patrons dispersing thereafter. It has been addressed in a dispersal management plan that has been submitted to us. it's just going to be a case of whether or not that's going to be enough because of the time that people are going to be leaving, which is going to be probably around about 1:30 in the morning when all is said and done. So, I mean, it might be the case that we reduce those hours very slightly so that people are able to leave at a more reasonable time, just to prevent that last bit, assuming everything else can be controlled for with what else we've proposed. Thank you.
I'll carry on now and put the, when I speak, I will put the, the thing on. Okay, thank you.
We Yeah. Is it? Am I ready to? Can I start?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep.
And when you finish, can you turn it off because otherwise a big can't turn on.
Will do.
Thank you.
Good to go? Yeah, so I think our main concerns is on dispersal. It's fair points that have been made in terms of noise management, air conditioning, windows being shut, but I don't see any possible solution in dispersal of customers. In terms of us, we're incredibly busy. I personally work 60-hour weeks, sometimes more, so my quiet time, I expect to get reasonable sleep of an evening. Especially on a Friday and Saturday where I'm not working, that's my rest time. And so the thought of noise at 1:30 in the morning seems quite drastic to me. If there was such a plan put in place to control patrons leaving, it's how likely that's to remain in place. I think what often happens is residents bear the burden of reporting on a continuous basis. And again, to be honest, I can't be bothered with that on my weekends. I don't want to be dealing with that, putting in complaints. I want to relax on my weekends. And I think in terms of the establishment with late hours, it's obviously for a party. I go to them myself, I enjoy them, but not in a residential space. And I'm sure Miles echoes those comments.
Yeah. No, I agree with Chelsea. Everything Chelsea says.
Chair, you may, if that will assist you, then I don't see any reasons why not.
Yeah, okay, perhaps, would you, if,
Yeah, if the officer can just pass that.
Well, if it helps, we're directly opposite, so we're probably couldn't be any closer. So
Yes, the obviously once the record's done, I will hand it back at the end, but it's so that I can then comment on proximity and what is being said about the car park, because obviously if I don't know where they live, I can't respond. The Act is very clear that I ought to be told where they live so I can respond, and there's no suggestions. Yeah, yes. No, of course not. Yes. No. I just want it as the person speaks, and I can write it down, and then we go to the next one. I know it's going to be a bit long, but
Chair, if I'd just like to also say, whilst I totally appreciate what Mr. Dadds is saying, that's okay. But if, just to reiterate again, if somebody doesn't feel comfortable to do that, and maybe they can just indicate. You can't hear. Do you want to move on this side? Maybe it's not going to match me. Okay, we'll try our best to speak up. You've,
Mr. Leonard, I just want the last person who spoke. No one else otherwise I won't know who it is.
yeah, if we just leave the plan with the last person that spoke, they're happy to. Yeah, if we just can hand that back. Just to also say that you're not in any obligation to actually mark it if you don't want to. If you feel comfortable enough to mark it, then that's fine. If not, you can just state where in the proximity you are, and that should be sufficient. Okay, thank you.
okay. Okay, so now can I hear from Andrew and Elaine Bush, please? Are they here? Oh, sorry, Elaine Bush. Okay, my dear.
Miss Bush, if you wouldn't mind coming forward because other people are having difficulties hearing you. Thank you.
I just have one comment that I would like to put forward. We live opposite the car park entrance. It's a driveway, it's a private driveway. We have difficulty at sometimes because people do come down. But late at night, 1:30, whatever, when the street lights are off and taxis turn up, whatever, we've had this before, they'll park there because we have restrictions in the road. We've lived there 43 years. We enjoy living in Great Whalley and we feel safe. And the thought that somebody can come along and take over a premises and change all that really endangers in us both fear and stress.
Sorry, so it's just Martin Samantha who are here. So we've only lived at Worley for 24, 25 years. And in the time that we've been there, we've seen the Horse and Groom, we've seen the Fat Turk, and now we have Mesra. And I must say, it's lovely to see money being invested in that building. Nobody wants to see it desolate or destitute. So really, we don't want this to be a sad event, to have new owners. We welcome that. But what we don't want is to have our lives slightly thrown into disarray. We are both professional parents. We have 3 sons who are all heading into professional careers. And much like Chelsea, we really need our sleep too. My wife is a head teacher, so you can understand the stress that she is under daily running a school in South Ockenden. I work in the city in a media investment company, and I lead a very stressful life in that as well. We both need our relaxation. Now, that relaxation could include going over to Mesra for dinner, and I'd very much like that. But if we have a sense that our community, all of us here, are being disrupted, I don't think any of us here will want to take a part in that. And I'm not being in any way prejudiced, but if we feel that our lives are being disrupted by noise and by people coming into our area and leaving late at night and waking us up, then unfortunately it's going to affect our feelings of wanting it to succeed. Now, I completely understand that the investment in the restaurant is hopefully going to bring some form of economic growth. I'd like to know where that's all going to go, if that's going to come back into the community. I don't know. The noise management plan, if there was a noise management plan under the previous owners, I would bring that into question. I have had evenings when the Fat Turk was open where I could stand in my lounge and I could hear the music very, very clearly. I could hear the words to some of the music. And I live, by the way, sorry, just so you know, I live at 187 Morley Hill, which is exactly opposite the restaurant. So much like Chelsea and Miles, we are completely open to any noise that may come over, be that from music or be that from people leaving the establishment. So if there is a new management plan in place, I'd like to know what differences are going to be there to reduce the noise levels that we experienced under the Fat Turk. Now, looking this evening at Mesra and the new extension at the back, there is a new roof on top that can be brought open so that fresh air can come in, which is wonderful for diners, and I can completely understand why that's been done. But then the doors into the restaurant, between the patio and the restaurant area, have been removed. So any music that is being played in the restaurant cannot be contained. That will escape out to the patio, and if that roof is open, out into the open air, and into our lounges, and into our homes, and into our gardens. On a summer's evening like this evening, why shouldn't we be able to sit in our gardens and enjoy the weather without any noise coming over from the restaurant? Now listen, I completely understand. A summer's evening like today, Mesra should be doing well and should be inviting customers in, and I do not want that not to happen, but we want our lives to continue as well. I think that's as much probably as we both.
I just wanted to say one thing which sort of also goes towards what Elaine was saying. We have had in the past people that have been visiting the restaurant parking at the back of the house. And Martin, and I believe you, Graham, as well, have been subject to verbal and aggressive abuse from those customers that have been waiting for people to pick up from the previous owners, the previous restaurant, and that contravenes anyone's safety. No one should have to undergo that. And if people have had a drink late at night, then I feel that that's only going to get worse. If we can't feel that we can challenge people parking down our private road, then that is going to cause a problem, and law and order is going to be compromised.
Can I make one last point as well? I do feel that extending these hours if it's on a case-by-case basis, if there's a specific event that is being booked, a birthday party, wedding party, whatever, and we know that's going to happen, then by all means, that's fine, because we can make plans. We can adapt and allow things to happen. But every night of the week to midnight, at weekends, without knowing what's going to happen tomorrow night, is there going to be another late party? Or is there not going to be? Are we going to get sleep tonight or not? That kind of unpredictability is not something anybody would want. And back to my wife's point, there was a previous ownership who really didn't care about that, I'm afraid to say. They didn't have any regard for any of us as local residents or for our community. But I hope that the owners of Mesra understand and can see why we are concerned and why we would probably prefer that you have the regular licensing hours, and then we can express a preference, or we can at least know that there's going to be a party on Saturday night and we don't need to be here. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, use that one.
Lovely. I live next door to the Fat Turk. There's a little cottage attached to the Fat Turk. I'm the house next to that. And there's all fields out the back of my house. So every door slam, every noise that happens in the car park, I hear, because it reverberates back and echoes. And that goes with the noise in the car park, the people having like a little disco after they've left the restaurant. I've been round there in my pyjamas before and have had to complain on several times, actually. I don't really know how the noise thing would work with the removable roof. I sit in my garden and then it's very close to the car park and to the new seating area. And I like my garden too. I've lived there 22 years and I sit in there and that's my peace and quiet. I've got birds, wildlife, and I don't really want to be listening to a disco, and any music that does go on, we can hear in the Fat Turk. And we had many issues before with it. When I say this, it's through experience, not through me just surmising.
That's me. Right. Okay. Going back to Martin's comment, I live next door to Martin. Going back to Martin's comment on the roof, it's a metal retractable roof, so sound will definitely go through that. It can't be soundproof, impossible to be soundproof because it goes up like that and retracts. So that's one point I'd like to make. On several occasions, when it was a Fat Turk, and obviously I know it's a new company, and yes, I want it to be a restaurant, but when the Fat Turk had parties or music on, what you'd get is people leaving the Fat Turk, coming outside, they've called a cab, and the cab's going to be half hour. So they're all outside talking, then they sort of move outside the car park because the Fat Turk wants to get them out of their property because they're closing. Then they come along Worley Hill and they stand on the pavement waiting for a cab to come up Worley Hill. As you know, there's less cabs in Brentwood than there was before COVID. So you can't get a cab for love of the money. And people won't book cabs early. They will wait till 12:30, 1 o'clock and try and book a cab. They won't get one. So what they do, they hang around outside our houses talking. You get boyfriend and girlfriends arguing. You get people coming into our pathway at the front because we've got hedges. They go behind the hedges, they urinate. We had them in our back driveway, the drive behind our houses. I had them urinating. I've been confronted several times by people at 12 at night, 11 at night. I don't want to be doing that at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. It's just unacceptable. I shouldn't have to do that. I've called the police many times. I've got very angry with people many times because it's very frustrating. Every weekend, you're going outside, confronting people. It's dangerous for me, it's dangerous for my son, it's dangerous for my wife, because you don't know. Nowadays, people just turn. So I wish that they would keep it to just a restaurant, play background music. Yes, they can have the odd live singer, but not every night of the week and not every weekend, because when you have live singers every weekend, we all can hear it. I can hear it in my house. So there's no way that they can nullify that sound. I want to understand as well the soundproofing. I know they're saying they're putting triple glazing. They haven't upstairs. Is there no music being upstairs? Because I need to understand that. Obviously, the conservatory bit with the retractable roof, the music's going to be on throughout the restaurant, so that's going to go out. So, and also you get people in the car park. I know you can't really do much about this. People in the car park bibbing their hoosers, talking. How are they going to manage disbursement of people? They can only manage the disbursement of people from their premises. They can't manage disbursement of people outside our houses. So that's all. Sorry, what was that?
So do we know? Sorry, hi. So do we know
What the dispersal plan
what the plan is for this? Do we have any idea what
Is
the
that
plan
is that something that can be shared with us? Dispersal plan?
Oh, there we go. I've literally only just received it a couple of hours ago. I don't know if I'm able to print it off or not, but it is definitely a draft document at the moment, and there's going to be stuff that we want to go away and think about putting in there. Sure. Yeah.
Can I?
One other thing is, I don't know how true this is. I've heard that they're employing bouncers for a restaurant. I've never heard of bouncers in a restaurant before. If it's bouncers in a restaurant, that means it's going to be lively, drunk people. So the Fat Turk didn't have bouncers, and that was lively and rowdy. So if you're going to have bouncers, it's going to be even worse. And then you're extending. All they're doing is extending the licensing hours to have the nuisance later on and early hours of the morning. It's bad enough when it's 11, 12 o'clock. I don't want it after 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Chair, may I just interject? The dispersal plan, has that come in? I'm sorry, I should have asked, has that come in today? Just before the meeting? Okay, yeah. Chair, you will need to see a copy of that, and I think we should provide a copy to everybody here as well, so it's fair and that they get an opportunity to have a look. And if they want to make any comments, then they can do as well. So if that can be given to ARC, and then maybe you could just make some copies, if that's okay.
That would be good.
Is that okay, Mr. Dad? So that everyone has an opportunity to have a look at it, because it is late in the day to receive that, and we ourselves haven't seen that. It would really help just for everyone to have a look at it.
Absolutely fine. Thank you, Mr. Dax.
I suspected you'd say that you will address us on it, and that would be really helpful. So yeah, if that can be done. Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I just ask one thing? How can a company apply for a licence when they haven't got all the plans in place?
It's a process you go through. I think there's been a bit of...
You don't apply for your driving licence, your full driving licence, until you pass your tests.
Well, Madam Chairman, I think I can address that when I come to it, because yes,
That's absolutely fine. At the moment, we're still gathering background.
it's quite right and proper that if we listen and we read what the residents have written, that we may address that through some conditions, and we can propose that at any time. That's responsible to do that. Okay. Right. So where am I on my list? Sorry, can I just make a statement that we've all come here quite serious tonight, and we're looking at something, quite important document that's only been submitted 2 hours before this meeting. I don't think that demonstrates how serious this company is taking our livelihoods. Thank you.
That's noted.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you know, if it will assist you, then it's up to you. It's your prerogative as to whether or not you admit it in. And it's also up to you as to how much weight you attach to it as well. So please be assured about that. And the committee will be advised accordingly. But your submissions have been noted, and as has Mr. Dad's, and he will address you on those points anyway. Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Like some of our neighbours, we've lived in our house for well over 25 years now. So when we moved there, it was a pub, a pretty rural pub, and you expected what you got. We knew we were going to live next to or across the road from a pub, and we got exactly what we expected. When it changed to the Fat Turk, we were fairly supportive in principle, but one thing we noted about the Fat Turk management process was that they weren't interested in the sharing the residency of the area. We encouraged them, I personally encouraged the owner to meet with us, to meet with me and just individually, to talk about some of the issues that would likely affect us so that they could. They never engaged with us, and as you've heard, we've experienced all the same things. We had nothing but problems. And I've had environmental health officers standing in my lounge at 1 o'clock in the morning recording loud noise. And in the end, we got changes made to the licence arrangements for the Fat Turk that brought it more into control. But I'm afraid what worries me about what's happening here is exactly the same thing. There's been no attempt whatsoever by these owners of a prospective nightclub-style restaurant to engage with the community which they sit. There's been no attempt to talk to anybody in here or communicate with them at all. So I wonder just how much they're going to listen, really, to what our concerns are. That's a fear. I hope I'm wrong, but there's no evidence that that's actually there. They're seriously thinking about that they're part of a residency in that area and that they're part of the community. And if they want to be part of the community, they need to engage with us properly and ensure that what they do run is run for the benefit of their business, but also for the benefit of the community as well. That's the sort of general point. But I have all the same concerns about nuisance. We've been through all the nuisance issues before, and yeah, we get loud bass music into our bedrooms at night from the previous experiences. And I'm no expert on buildings, but I really doubt very much whether any kind of degree of insulation is going to stop that happening if they have that kind of activity going on. Now, it's one thing to accept it to midnight, and that's fine. That's not unreasonable. That's what the licence has been. And there's another restaurant not too far away from us, down the road, the Felix, which has similar hours to that, but it doesn't operate with music at the moment. It's a quieter restaurant, but nevertheless, they run it very successfully. So I've got no issue. We've got no issue at all with the principle of that. But to extend it to 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30 in practice, 2 o'clock by the time people actually clear the area. I can't see what the rationale for that is. In a business sense, it makes very little difference, I think, at all. But in terms of the impact it's going to have on what is a residential area, it seems to me that that is a dramatic step in the wrong direction. And it seems fundamentally wrong to me that you and we do not know about the management capabilities of this company, this business. They could be excellent, they could be absolutely terrible. But they simply apply for an extended range of hours. You look at the case and you have to decide whether that's reasonable or not. I don't know what goes on behind the doors, but you come to your view. But there's no measure by which you can really judge whether they're going to manage it the way they say they are, successfully. And it's left for us as the residents to be the police. And we have to wait and see if it works. If it doesn't, we have to complain. And it takes a long, long while to get the services engaged. And we've had good support in the past, but I know that you're in a poor position, as most councils are, and the chances of getting environmental health officers out at 1 o'clock in the morning to come and listen and record complaints about noise and music and disturbance is going to be really difficult. And like the young woman next to me, I don't want to be engaged in that. I'm 75 years old. I want to enjoy my life quietly in my house. Now, I know it's an impossible job for you guys because you'll hear all the legal arguments, all the regulations, and all that says that you're supposed to make a rounded judgment. But at the end of the day, the only people that are going to be affected by this judgment are us on this side. They won't be affected. They may lose an hour of their business if you keep it to extended hours. But if they can't make a living out of that like every other restaurant, then I don't know what business they're in. They're not a restaurant, they're a nightclub if they're not. So I ask you really to look at the weight of our views relative to the weight of what the regulations and the requirements of that are, and to take properly into account that the people that are actually going to suffer from this, if it's not managed, are us. If they prove themselves to be good managers of the business, and there aren't complaints at the hours that currently operate for that premise, then maybe they can come back and ask for an extension. And that perhaps will be reasonable because we would be in a different place. We would be able to say, they've managed it well, they've kept the business operational, they've not disturbed us unnecessarily, and why would we not therefore agree with them going forward with longer hours? But certainly not in the first instance. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm afraid I will reference how long I've lived in the area because I feel it's apposite, and I will be quoting from the letter I wrote because that's a better formulation of my thoughts. Thank you. So since September 1992, we have lived in the property we own in Maskell's Lane, which is located directly opposite to the premises to which the application pertains. In 1992, the property was a public house, the Horse and Groom, and it was run by a landlord and his wife who resided at the property full time. And we're making this point as since the premises have been operated by a non-resident owner or managers, we have considerable empirical experience of disruption to our lives generated by public disorder, noise and nuisance at this venue. Now, of course, the argument will be made that this is a new venue under new management. However, we are realists, and any venue at which staff do not reside is liable, and again this is subjective, but liable to demonstrate a complete lack of awareness for the needs of local residents. Now, when we bought our house in 1992, we were fully cognizant that we were moving near a licensed establishment. The key factor was that the landlord lived on the premises and took great care to ensure that his neighbours were not disturbed by his commercial activity. Particular case in point, Millennium Eve. One would not know that anything was happening that night, and we stayed up late, and that was still an incredibly well-managed event because he met his neighbours in the morning. When the original application was made for the development of the Fat Turk over 15 years ago, the absence of staff accommodation caused us particular concern, and disappointingly, our worst fears were realised. again, I hope you don't think this is too subjective or opinionated, but the hoardings currently surrounding the site advertise, and I quote directly, Turkish fine dining, which is wonderful, Turkish food is delicious, whilst the Mesra website calls upon potential customers to imagine a place that is more than just food and drink, and the music, lighting, cocktails and energy come together to create incredible vibes. Now, even allowing for the hyperbola inherent in advertising, the notion that this venue will confine itself to providing the services of a restaurant in a residential area rather than subjectively my opinion, a de facto nightclub, I feel is quite unlikely. The noise, disturbance and nuisance created by a nightclub opposite our home has precipitated our very strong objection to this application. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, just been handed a copy of this well-prepared document. Obviously, I've lived in the area. I've been subject to some of the late night events that the Fat Turk did hold, and yeah, they were very disruptive, to say the least. Obviously, it would be nice to see the restaurant continue in its guise, but all I'm seeing here tonight is a restaurant which wants to become a nightclub, and sort of mention of security on a car park. In all my years of socialising, I don't think I've ever seen a security member go into a car park. So, you know, the dispersal of the events does worry me in particular. The late night licence, the type of clientele that attracts. Again, you know, I've been about. I know exactly what sort of people frequent late night places, and you know, this could be very detrimental to our quality of life. So I hope this is being taken seriously. Just one other thing that worries me. I know through my own personal occupation a lot about planning law. It seems that there's been a lot of changes made to the building, and then retrospective planning applications made which are still to be determined, including the amendments on the rest. So if those planning applications are rejected, does it mean all these improvement measures go in the bin and we are left with the sort of original state of affairs that we had with the Fat Turk? Just one other point as well I would like to raise. Beyond some of the representatives opposite us, there is a hospital as well, Hartswood Hospital. Thank you.
Chair, sorry, just before we move on, this is just for the record. Now that you've seen a copy of the draft disposal noise management plan, you've seen that now.
Yeah.
You'll take it in the deliberations. Are you happy, just part of our record, just to admit this in as part of the presentation of the submissions? Yeah. And Mr. Daz would obviously address you on that later.
To be fine-tuned as well, so this is a basic.
It's a
working document. Okay, that's fine.
I also, Chair, I don't know if you've had the opportunity, it's only a couple of pages, I say only, but you know, you don't know if you've had enough time to just, if you want to make submissions.
I just read about the lighting.
So I can't hear you.
Sorry, I've just read on there about having more lighting. I mean, I had to go around to the Fat Turk and with their lightings because it was directly into my bedroom windows. I would be really concerned about the light pollution with having really bling lighting because it would affect my garden and my vista because it had done before. So, and they did move it a little bit. So.
May I just ask about where are external areas? So external areas will be cleared by 2230. But where are we? there's a piece within, I've got it quoted in my letter, talking about the Smoking Act, and external provision has to be made for people to smoke. So if external areas are going to clear by 22:30, does that mean 3 hours before people will be leaving the site, they aren't allowed outside to smoke?
Let's note that down, and Mr. Dadds will be able to address that. Does anybody else wish to make any comments so that Mr. Dadd can address you all appropriately?
There's no mention of, there's only disbursement from their property. There's no mention of disbursement from people walking outside the Fat Turk. They're not taking that seriously. They're only saying that they will, what I've quickly read without my glasses, they're only monitoring what's within their property, not outside.
Yes, thank you, members. As you'll be aware, there is obviously the Licensing Act is a statutory framework, and you've heard from your solicitor today, and I think you as a licensee previously, or if you still are, and that members will be trained to be aware that there's a statutory scheme. It's regulated. This application has to be judged on its own merits. What's gone on in the past with the Fat Turk has no relevance at all in relation to this application. Now, it may be... Sorry, I had this before when I was at the committee. I'm sure it's deliberate. So therefore, in regards to mismanagement or any comments made about the fact that cannot form any part of your deliberation or decision, in my respectful opinion. Of course, I understand, and we understand, the residents would have experienced a poor operator, and on that basis they are apprehensive or have concerns about what will be going forward, and that is not lost on us at all. However, we can't be and must not be compared to another operator like that. This application must be judged on its own merits, and I'm going to go through the application and some of the points that we've addressed. In addition to that, it has to be said that the Licensing Act is what we call permissive. In other words, the licence should be granted. It's in effect a permissive scheme, and that comes from a case in the High Court from East Lindsey District Council and ANIF in 2016 in the High Court, which I was one of the council barristers in that case, that said that it's about forward looking. And so therefore, if you make an application, it must be granted unless there's relevant representations. If there are representations, it's those that you will look at and make an evaluation of those representations and determine whether, one, the application can be granted with, I would say, conditions. If it can't be granted with conditions, then obviously you will determine that the licensing objectives can't be met and therefore there's no grant. But if you are in a position where that's the case, you have to give real detailed reasons of why conditions don't overcome the concerns, and that that has to be evidence-based. And evidence-based is, I know you've had submissions, but we're talking about probative value of evidence that is given, so any logs or anything like that. Now, the residents are at a somewhat disadvantage here because we haven't operated, but the law is any decision you make has to be evidence-based, and we're not open yet. But in any event, it is permissive. So in other words, the scheme works on this basis. You're granted the application. If something goes wrong, then the safeguard is that they can call a review. So it works that way. It's permissive review. It isn't the reverse. We operate, have to prove ourselves and then come back. It doesn't work that way. And also I can perhaps just articulate and give the residents some comfort. If, for example, it is true that someone is hearing bass beat and on a regular basis in their home, the local authority have a statutory duty. They have no discretion, a statutory duty to issue a noise abatement notice. They must, and they don't have any discretion. So there are a number of safeguards in place. But in any event, this premises, they need not concern themselves with that, because there are a number of steps in place to ensure that there's no noise breakout and certainly no noise that will affect the nearest sensitive receptor, i.e. the residents that live close nearby. I know that one of the residents mentioned the premises down the road. I'm going to say Felix, it is Felix, but I always get it mixed up with Smith's, because the chef came from there. I dealt with that application, and I recall, I think I made an application then at 2 o'clock, I believe. So I think it has a licence either 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So it doesn't necessarily mean, and there were objections then and it was granted, and since then... Madam Chair, I didn't interrupt the residents. I'd like to... Yeah. Sorry. So, and what it was, there were concerns raised about that premises being in a semi-rural rural area with residents nearby. Now, obviously, I'm not aware of any matters arising. I still am their legal counsel. There is a difference between what people will operate and what time they have a licence to. And I think that's also a misunderstanding, because it may be that you apply for later hours, but certain seasonal times then you will use those hours, and other times you may not. So even though we apply for the hours, it doesn't mean we will use them each and every day or each and every week. I just want to set out that this premises is food-led. Now, on the ground floor, there will only be recorded music, occasional live entertainment by one person. But in any event, it is background, and that it will be managed insofar as it's recorded music through a noise system. The upstairs will be a lounge bar which will receive people before or after dinner, and that music will be probably akin more to a lounge bar, but all sound attenuation works have been carried out in that area, including noise proofing all the windows, so there won't be any noise escape. And we have said to the local authority, the environmental health officer, that we are confident with the systems we've put in place that there will be no breakout of noise or any frequencies, and that once the system is up and running, we will go and check outside. Residents, we can communicate with residents if need be, if they wish us to, but certainly we'll be doing that with environmental health. And if there's any noise escape or leakage, we will deal with that should it arise. We don't think it will. And the only possible escape is possibly through the ventilation systems or the air conditioning vents, because the premises has air conditioning. And if that was the case, then we would offer up a noise limiting device that can be set so it can't go beyond a certain volume. But at the moment, the environmental health officers and ourselves are confident we don't need a noise limiting device, because actually we've invested heavily in the acoustic windows, panelling and noise proofing. In relation to the premises, there's no, certainly in the ground floor, there's no vertical drinking. There's no bar or servery for vertical drinking. It is a table service only. So, and and the idea of a simultaneous dispersal where that people will be disturbed is not envisaged in that way, because as you know, when you go for dinner, there will be different time slots, different people will eat at different times and leave at different times. What we have decided to do, because we have, and I have considered the representations from the residents, and if I'm confident that there's no noise breakout, the next matter seems to be high on the agenda is to deal with any patron noise or dispersal noise going to the car park. And what we have proposed is to have SIA or a marshal in the car park area managing that to ensure people don't loiter, people are escorted or shown to their vehicles, and that they return not causing any disturbance. So actually that's a positive step to make sure the outside area is managed when people leave the restaurant. We don't envisage anyone causing a disturbance because they're going to a restaurant, and when they leave, typically restaurants, people do not leave causing a disturbance. And so on that basis, we have proposed and will be putting in SIA or marshal for external. So it shouldn't be seen as a negative in any way, shape or form. I think it's a positive, because, for example, if someone was to leave the premises and cause a disturbance down the road or across the road or be loitering, we have people on hand that can manage that. Now, I know that I may be criticised saying, well, that's after the event. We don't believe that that is going to occur, but should it occur, we have steps in place to actually remedy and deal with that, should it arise. And because we are having a restaurant which is predominantly by booking, it's not solely that, but we'll have the details. If someone misbehaves, they'll be banned from the premises. They won't be able to come back. So I think there are mechanisms and processes in place to ensure or encourage good behaviour and conduct. But you'll note that in the dispersal and management plan, a member of the public criticised for not saying what you're going to do across the road. Well, obviously, as you know, in the legislation, the guidance is that once people leave our premises, it's a matter of individual responsibility to be law-abiding. We can only, and you can only, in effect, encourage that you would have appropriate signage and appropriate measures in your premises to encourage people to leave. Predominantly, people are coming to us by motor vehicle and not by foot. So I think that is our understanding of what's likely to occur. And obviously we are happy to engage with residents should they have any concerns. And I know that the manager is very experienced in dealing with and fitting in with community. It's not, it shouldn't be controversial that it's a licensed premises in any event, and it has been there for many years. And that anyone that does move to the premises has to accept, as we have to accept, that there is a commercial premises there, and it can change. It can change owner, licensee, operator, pub company. It's subject to all the changes that a residential dwelling has. It may have a leaseholder, a freeholder, a tenant. It may have a good tenant and have a bad tenant. It could have a good neighbour and a bad neighbour. And it's no different in any environment like that. When you move next to a licensed premises, you know it is a licensed premises, and people will go to and from that licensed premises. Of course, Chair, you will know I'm very sensitive to the idea that we still have to make sure when people come and go that they do that in a responsible way. But it's not equivalent to living in some village or some quiet residential street. You cannot expect the same level if you live next to a pub. You're going to have to experience and accept people will come and go from a licensed premises. And you also have to expect from occasionally you may be disturbed. May. It's the frequency and how often that occurs. That happens once a year or twice a year. That's going to be more than acceptable in any sorts of tolerance. Yes, it's if it's frequently, every week, every month, and that's a different proposition. We say We don't expect any of that at all in the way that we will operate. We will operate a restaurant that's not, that is table service. People will come and book, have a meal and leave quietly and responsibly. And we will manage the outside space as equally as we manage the inside space, because we accept and understand that the residents will want some assurance that people coming and going to the premises do so in a responsible way. And so therefore we have taken steps to do that. In relation to the draft plan, that came out of some discussions and just points of clarification. It is predominantly led, restaurant-led, food-led. Customers arriving and departing will do so gradually, and there'll be step bookings. As you would understand, in any restaurant, we don't have everyone coming at once. The kitchen would not cope. The kitchen has been expanded significantly, so it shows it's food-led. Any proposition or suggestion of a nightclub should be just dismissed. That is not the position here. And we're quite content, if you want to have a condition. It mustn't have a condition that it's only restaurant, because we don't do that. But we're quite content that it should be predominantly food-led, restaurant-led, because upstairs will be a lounge bar. We are not having a vertical drinking establishment. Our objective is to minimise any impact on local residents by controlling dispersal and preventing public nuisance. We have acknowledged the concerns relating to concerns previously about dispersal and car park activity, and obviously we have addressed that by having Marshall managing it and having lighting. Now, when we say lighting, we don't mean we're not a football pitch. I mean, appropriate lighting, people can go back to it and turn their car that's appropriately directed, not causing light pollution. We're not doing that. And I know that the lady talked about, Laurel, I think it was, talked about hearing noise from the back. Obviously, we will manage that car park. But if she is affected by noise from the car park, and she is the only one there because the neighbour next door, that premises we have acquired, that would be a private nuisance, not a public nuisance in law. Now, I don't want to dance on a pin of a head on that. Obviously, we're going to manage it. But obviously, if you do buy premises next to a public house that has a car park, you will have to expect the noise of people coming or going to the cars, normal noise. And we believe we can manage that in managing the car park. In relation to the management plan of noise, of reducing noise, dispersal, no external speakers, making sure that there's no disposing of any waste during the late night time, and avoiding deliveries that cause disruption. These are all standard things, but we've put it there to make sure it's all clear. And the reason for that, Madam Chairman, is that a number of the representations raise those points, so we've addressed it in this document. Staff will monitor vehicle noise, anyone loitering, and make sure that there is prompt departure and encouraging people to leave. Now, obviously, if someone has booked a taxi, we will hold them inside until their taxi arrives. A good practice is that they should remain in the premises. I will address the issue about opening hours, but in any event, opening hours are not regulated. So therefore, we can have people remain in the premises as late as we want them to stay, but they will remain there until their private hire or hackney carriage or their private transport arrives to take them home, and they'll be escorted to their vehicle and they'll be on their way. So there's none of that. There should be no reason why someone's on the street waiting for a hackney carriage. They can wait inside. And likewise, we have sufficient toilet facilities, and there's no reason why anyone should be caught short on their way home. But as I say, those are matters of individual responsibility. In relation to the smoking, yes, of course, this is a draft document, and perhaps it could be worded better. But of course, what we mean is the external areas won't be used for any alcohol consumption, but obviously people can be outside for smoking only. So the area outside at 10:30 will be controlled, and that area will be cleared, except for the smoking, which will be under supervision. The staff training on dispersal and incident response, CCTV, and maintenance log. The premises are and have elsewhere signed up to Licensing Connect, which is a system, so they have digital digital recording of records. So, for example, incident logs, refusal registers, digital training, so online training for food, wave training, and alcohol training. So all the training, all the systems in place to make sure that everyone is appropriately trained on the conditions of the licence, the licensing objectives, and what is meant to be achieved. And in relation to the external doors and windows, all windows and doors shall be kept during regulated entertainment. Now, what that means is that if there is any regulated entertainment, the windows have to be kept closed. And if that as outside area, which has been noted where windows can come and the roof can open, then there will be no regulated entertainment. It would only be background. And obviously we would have to be sure that no one is disturbed or any music that is within that premises, and we're confident that it's only background in any event and will not disturb anyone away from any of those properties. We've given this draft document, in effect, or first draft to Environmental Health, because we thought when we looked at their representation after meeting with them, at page 76 of the agenda, obviously we don't agree in reducing hours, because obviously 1 o'clock Friday and Saturday is not an unreasonable hour for a licensed premises, and even in this location. If regulated entertainment is provided inside and there's no public nuisance, then what goes on inside won't disturb anyone outside. It's just managing the car park and dispersal, and that's gradual. And in fact, I think if you have a lesser time, you may find that you have more people leaving at 12 or 12:30 than you would at 1:30, because it will be gradual, it will be managed. We have and would agree to conditions regarding submission or approval of the noise management plan, and also a patron dispersal plan. And so we are happy for a condition to be agreed and in consultation with the officer signed off. And as you can see, we've already agreed keeping windows and doors closed during regulated entertainment safe for egress and ingress. And so the points that were being made, we have addressed in a meeting and clarified. But we haven't done that as a result. We're doing anyway. We were doing these steps because that's what we would need to do. And it's not expected of us to actually go through each and every step and put it in our application, because, as I said, it's permissive. But if I could just very, very briefly summarise a few other points, and I will be quick. Yes. So, obviously, you'll be, regard to the guidance, each decision has to be evidence-based and proportionate to achieve the licensing objectives. There are no objections from Essex Police, and they will be your lead on crime disorder, and they raise no objections on crime disorder or antisocial behaviour. The planning authority and the licensing authority have not objected. Now, the licensing authority, as a responsible authority, are the guardians of the policy, in effect, and they would be duty-bound, I would say, to object if they had any, and they haven't. The case of Daniel Thwaite says that you should have regard to that matter, that they haven't raised an objection, because it is evidence that they are satisfied that the licensing objectives will be met. And those responsible authorities are experts in their own fields. Any absence in those is highly material factor that you should take into account. You'll see that the operating schedule has a number of extensive conditions regarding CCTV, Challenge 25, incident logs, dispersal control, noise controls. And you've seen the extra document that I have addressed. Residents' representations do raise a number of matters regarding noise, antisocial behaviour and historic issues. and we've obviously taken those into account when we've looked at and revised our plan, and obviously we've gone through the proper statutory consultation process. Obviously, those previous complaints have little or no weight in relation to this application, and provide you no additional evidence that you ought to be taken into account. You need to obviously look at this premises on its own merits and the licensing objectives. The policy must be treated as a starting point. It doesn't displace any of the application on its own merits, and that the test is, if you are satisfied that the licensing objectives were met, then obviously it must be granted. In the alternative to that, you have to look at conditions. Do they achieve your concerns or any concerns you have, and if they do, you must grant. As I say, very lastly, in 60 seconds, that the statutory scheme is permissive. There's no key objection from the main responsible authorities, and I think we've addressed the concerns of environmental health. There are other premises in your borough licence like this in areas which are equally rural or even more rural that are open later, and they can manage and do manage. And there are a lot of safeguards in place should they not be managed. That's not, I'm not saying that because it won't, it will, and I'm confident this application, with the robust conditions, can promote the licensing objectives. And it's not just us saying that, the police are saying that, and your licensing authority are saying that. Unless I can assist you any further, that is the submissions on behalf of the applicant.
No, it was just simply, and I do apologise again, Mr. Dadds, for interjecting whilst you were having your moment. It was just, just as a point of reference, thought I would look at adjacent or premises that I think aspire or demonstrate the aspirations of Mesra in terms of really fine dining. And one of those I looked at was Felix, which their last point of serving food is 9 p.m. Wednesdays and Thursdays, 9:30 on Fridays and Saturdays, and they should close at midnight. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, Councillor Murphy, I think that goes to the point I'm saying, is that I do know that they have a longer licence. I think it's either 1 or 2. I think it's 2 actually, but it may be 1 o'clock. But they don't have to use it. But obviously a premises will apply for what they want. It might be, and I do know that they would use those hours in peak times as well. So it's unlikely that they will be closing at peak times or seasonal variations.
Excuse me. Can we make a couple of points? Okay. 2 things. One, the licence for Felix, there's 2 houses that are further away from the restaurant than our houses. So there's only 2 houses involved there. There's lots more round. And the gentleman did say quite a few times, predominantly food, restaurant. Why do they need to have extended hours if it's predominantly food?
Yes. So I wanted to make it really clear, we're not objecting to the licence. We're not objecting to Mesra having a licence. I think that's got to be made clear. It's the extension. It's the extension. I'd also like to argue, so if it says there's no external speakers, I think I've already made the point. There are no doors at the back of the restaurant. So when the roof is opened, suddenly all speakers in the restaurant become external speakers, because there are no doors at the back to prevent the sound from escaping. I think that's quite important. I want to make one other point. We've all heard the accusation, you live opposite a pub, so you've got to expect a bit of noise. There was a moment where the Horse and Groom changed from being the Horse and Groom to being the Fat Turk, and that was a step change. And I think Pat made the point that when somebody's not living there, nobody really cares about what local residents are going through when it comes to noise. And I think that's really important to hear. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to, thank you.
Chair, before you move on, sorry to interject, perhaps Mr Dadds may want to respond to some of those concerns?
What I'll do is, if I answer your questions, if I've not responded to all the points, then maybe at the end I will pick them up, because save duplication.
Very quickly, could I ask, have you worked in the restaurant trade previously? Is this a new venture for you, or is it an extension of something that you've already been doing?
No, it's all the management team have a wealth of experience, and particularly in fine dining in the city and elsewhere. So it's over £1 million is being invested in this business, and obviously it is restaurant-led, and there's many years of experience on operating premises of this similar kind.
Thank you, Mr Dad. I'm just asking a question about the lounge area. You said for pre-drinks. Obviously, after people have had a meal, you know, they've had a good time, are they going back to the lounge area afterwards for a drink?
Well, firstly, if someone's had a meal, then obviously, you know, we can't serve them to a position of intoxication. So if someone's reached their limit, they won't be invited to go to the lounge. But if, for example, they finished their meal at 8 but want to stay and still continue to have a conversation or post-dinner drink, then they can. But we will only serve them if they're not intoxicated and not reached the limit where, you know, as you say, they've had a good time. But so it is managed. But the lounge area is to be pre and post dinner drinks, so that we can move the table and the sitting so that there's a limit and move them up. Yeah, yes, it's likely, yes. Yes. Yeah.
That's helpful, because that's then, again, it will roll it over, but it doesn't excuse anything, it's still got to be managed properly.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that is key for us. There's lots of investment, and also we will encourage people to remain seated, even if they're given late night refreshment or soft drinks, to remain until their private hire, their private car or Hackney carriage arrives.
Oh, thank you, Mr Dad. I was just wondering, is there any, I know you can't say for definite, but there's like a number of covers that you'll be catering for instance?
It's 120.
It's 120, that's max, is it?
Yes,
That's
120.
mixed tables,
Right.
2 4s and 6s.
It's ideally likely to be 120, but the maximum could be 140 at any given time.
140. And all
No, it's fine. It's no, of course not. No, we're not into that business. It's a restaurant.
It's a restaurant. And
Yes.
That's solely what it is.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you were to be having somebody singing there and all the rest of it, there is no dance floor. And
No.
There's no space for a dance floor, and they don't go out and dance.
No. Well, if I just clarify the position, in the restaurant first ground floor, there is no vertical drinking. Obviously, there's no vertical eating. It's all table service. Upstairs in the lounge, people could stand up and dance and could spontaneously dance, but there's no designated dance floor. But there could be that upstairs in the lounge, and not suggesting no one can't, but it's unlikely. But downstairs, it's the restaurant. Upstairs, it's not going to disturb anyone, Madam Chairman. It's soundproofed, air conditioned, and if people do want to hire that or dance there, then they can, and that can be managed. So, Madam Chairman, could I just ask that if it's possible, if I could finish member questions, that's up to you, you're chairing, and then maybe if I deal with any questions that arise from anyone else that you were just about to ask, because otherwise I think there's a danger that I'm sort of going backwards and forwards, and I want to try to make sure I've covered all the points that we had here.
I think, Madam, I think my question probably isn't going to be one that you're going to ask because it's simple but relevant. I think most of the objections you've heard really are about the fact that the restaurant wants to extend its time and the impact that has on the way people leave the premises. That's the key issue for us. What we haven't heard tonight is the rationale for why the restaurant needs or wants to be open an hour later than it usually was in the past when it was a restaurant. And I'd really like to hear very much, I personally, I mean, it may not be appropriate, but I'd really like to hear from the restaurant owner himself what the rationale is for keeping it open so late. It's reasonable.
The thing is, that, I'm happy to answer the question, but as you all know, that need is not a consideration for the committee, nor is it a business has to come along and show why they want to open somewhat later. As you know, typically, under the old Act, you would have a supper hour certificate. Restaurants always had midnight, or always had midnight with half an hour or 20 minutes. And under the Licensing Act, people went later. And so actually, additional hour is not unreasonable for a licensed premises on a Friday and Saturday. It isn't matter. I'm making that submission. They can laugh and mock me, but I have to respond. I'm saying, Chair, because I and your experience, it's not excessive. And if it's properly managed inside, anything going on inside will not affect the external. The dispersal, actually having it later, because we will stop seating probably about 10:30. So, probably the last order. So therefore, what I'm saying, that's right, is it? Sorry? Sorry? Yeah. Yeah, so the last sitting is about 10:30. Obviously, I'm not offering that as a time, but I'm giving you as an indication. So therefore, the 2 hour slot will be thereabouts. And if you had everyone leave at 12 to 12:30, you would have probably more people leaving at once. Whereas if you have a later time and have a gradual dispersal, allow people to leave in that way, in fact, I think you will have less people going out at a time, and that can be managed with the stewards. And actually, I think that will have a more positive response to the neighbours than if it was a lesser time. So actually, I think a later time is actually more positive. And it's been demonstrated since 2004 and now, nearly 20 years, that actually having premises open later and having a gradual dispersal, particularly restaurants very rarely cause you any trouble in this borough as licensed premises. I know I'm not conditioning it as restaurant only. I'm prepared to accept that it is predominantly food-led. But we are a restaurant on the ground floor with a bar on the top floor. So without a shadow of a doubt, and there's no vertical drinking downstairs. It is restaurant. And it's very rare that a restaurant premises like that will cause any disturbance or trouble. And I'm sure, I mean, I'm not going to ask the residents, but I'm sure that some residents would have been to a restaurant up to midnight and possibly later and left the premises in an appropriate manner and gone home without disturbing their neighbours. People go out, and we hope that they will come in and enjoy the premises, but we are confident that we can disperse people between 12 and 1 and 1 and 1:30.
May I just ask, obviously the restaurant will be pre-booked. There may be a potential for walk-ins off the street, but I'm assuming pre-booking in order to manage cooking. Will access to the lounge bar require pre-booking or booking in any form?
It'll be ancillary to the food. So Yeah, so no, you can't. No, that's not our business.
Yeah, there's just, yeah, is it possible to understand the gap between last orders for food and closing time? Because if the gap is, let's say, 2-3 hours, people are drinking. If the vibe is good, I would suggest they want to share that vibe. And there's been a lot of discussion about marshalling and ushering people. But no matter how great you are, we're ultimately talking about human behaviour with alcohol an extra hour into the early hours of the morning. We keep saying late at night, but we're talking about by the time perhaps people have cleared, the final people, it's 2 o'clock. And occasionally taxi drivers will toot. Clients will come out and will put their music on to keep a bit of music going. And that affects us. And the only people who will be affected by this when we finish tonight is us. That's why we're here. We have experienced the stresses of waiting for the beat to stop. So I could be sitting in bed at 10:30 on a Saturday night thinking, gosh, there's only an hour and a half and it'll stop. That's wonderful. But then the people will come out. If they're happy, they want to say goodnight. Sometimes that takes 20 minutes. But it is a racket. So no matter how well and experienced we are on the sector, how well we marshal, it's human behaviour that we don't really have much control of on the early hours of Sunday morning. And to suggest that we can is perhaps, I won't say naive, but it is relevant. And what's gone before is happening an hour later. That's why our experiences as reported tonight are particularly important. It's human behaviour ultimately that will determine how noisy it is. No matter how well we marshal, it's difficult to marshal, especially when people have spent their money in the restaurant and we're expecting them to come back. It's hard to be hard on those, telling them to be quiet like children late at night. It doesn't happen. That's the end of my point. Thank you.
I think that a couple of times Mr. Dad's referred to the fact that I've held a licence in the past. I had a pub for 40 years. Nobody out-drank in my pub when I wanted them to go home. They went home and they went home properly, or they didn't come back again. It's changed, life has changed, but I don't think that pubs are what they used to be. They're a different animal now, from my experience in the time I gave up 10 years ago. So it's slightly different now, I believe. But I honestly would like to think that you're as good as your word. I don't know. I know you are, but I don't know about these gentlemen. I've never met them before. And it would have been nice actually to speak to them. Because, you know, I've been in the trade. I know what it's like. You have a dream of what you want as your business and your business model. But you have to always remember you have neighbours, always. I was fortunate, I was out in the middle of nowhere, so it didn't matter so much. But I really do think that you should think very carefully about how you run this, because if you do come back in front of us, you know, we perhaps wouldn't, you know, be quite so tolerant is the word, I believe it is. But anyway, let me get on now, if I may.
Chair,
Yes.
may I just address some of the points, because it was a bit of a submission. I wouldn't mind just a couple of minutes picking up on some of the points.
2 minutes, Mrs. Boardman, timing.
And then I'll ask my client just to comment on your comments just then, because I think it'll be good for you to hear him. But in relation to the gentleman's comments, we're not asking for what's gone on in the past to happen and continue for an hour, because we're not behind. We're not the loud music bass beat in his bedroom. We won't have any noise breakout that will cause that. They talked about it was not controlled or managed before because they didn't have any marshals or SIA security, but we do and we will. And we are a professional operator and we will operate. And as I had already indicated, as you had already spoken, that we are predominantly pre-booked and we know the people are coming. And if they don't behave and don't take reasonable instructions, they won't be invited back. So we do manage it. I've accepted, and you will know, Chair, that things do happen from time to time on licensed premises, and it's how you manage it. So, and we will manage that very well and robustly. And if people don't behave, they won't be invited back. I'll let the General Manager just have a comment just briefly on his experience and what you can expect from him in managing residents and relationships with residents. To speak for no more than 2 minutes and just answer the Chair's comments.
Thank you very much, David. just to give a bit of a brief about myself, being in this industry about 15, 16 years, mostly managing high-end venues in West End, talking about in Mayfair, in Chelsea, as well as Soho. Now, over the years, we gone through an enormous amount of training program. It has to do with the health and safety, it has to do with the licensing, it has to do with promote responsible drinking culture to the clientele, to understand how the reservation system works and to manage the venue well. Now, to give assurance to the lovely neighborhood that we have here, we are going to be working strictly with the reservation system, where we will be able to see exactly how many people are coming to the premises in every 15 to 20 minutes. At the end of the day, it is a business where we are going to be delivering great food and service, but then it is very important for our end to understand as well how many people the kitchen can cope up in every slot. And that is going to help to eliminate quite a lot of concerns that residents have at the moment. Say, for example, like we are setting up the reservation, 30 people in every half an hour slot. And it is going to gradually continue like that throughout the whole evening. That naturally reflects that the person who came 30 minutes before to the restaurant itself, naturally they are going to be finishing 30 minutes before the next people who sit down in the premises. And that's why it's going to help us to ensure the gradual dispersal that quite a lot of us were concerned about over here. Regarding the late license and the extended hours, if the last reservation is going to be, say, for example, 10, 10:15 or 10:30, now we, in the restaurant business, we deliver the food and drinks within an hour and a half, and then we keep additional half an hour for our guests to enjoy the last bit of dessert, to enjoy their last bit of digestive or wine or etc. Now, that half an hour to an hour window that we are going to have in between, those are the windows are the key element for our end as a restaurateur to ensure the restaurant is operating smooth manner, where we are not pushing each and every single guest out of the way in one go, because we do understand how frustrated it can be as the restaurateur itself as well, to deal with X amount of people standing outside of the premises. Because at the end of the day, we are going to be concerned about our own safety as well as your safety to the
Does anybody
ladies.
stay overnight on the premises?
No. Sorry?
Does anybody stay overnight, or is it locked up and you all go home? So there's no resident?
There is not going to be no resident in the premises.
Okay.
Madam, the Chair, just so that it's clear, the premises will manage the dispersal. The question about having the proposition says, well, unless someone's living in or they're a tenant, there can be no assurance, or it's unlikely to be well managed, and that proposition is
The way I was talking from is that it's building up relationships.
Yes.
Because you have a group of people here who've got serious concerns about a new enterprise,
Yes.
which anybody would have.
Yes.
And I take on board all of that.
And it's
but from the beginning, if you make good relationships with your residents, then you don't have a problem.
I agree, and what it
it's
is
most
here,
important that people listen
Yeah.
to them.
and it's really important here to make it clear that these guys have a buy-in because they're the investors. They own it. They've put over
It's
£1 million.
like I did.
They've put-
It's the
Yeah.
same preface.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't serve anybody after 9:30.
Yes.
That was my last table. For my staff.
Yes, and the point is that the general manager is going to be there as a point of contact with the residents. So if they want, and I'm quite happy to make sure within the plan that a telephone number is provided or means of contact.
And a name.
Yeah, and because Sega will be there all the time, and I know he's a very, and I say this, I know this gentleman for many years. He's a very professional operator. I've seen him in a number of premises, and he's very good with neighbours and residents, and actually very good with responsible authorities. He's a professional licensee, like you were a professional licensee. He knows what he's doing. Residents may not realise that they have to have training, and you have to have a person of good character and no criminal convictions. So in relation to this general manager, it's his livelihood and it's important for him. Is there anything lastly you want to say before, or I think you've said everything you need to say?
I think I did, and again, I am always going to be, more than happy to answer the very first phone call whenever any neighbor is going to be having any concern, and I'll always be there to help and
When
support.
do you expect to open? That's my last question. When? What's the timescale here?
We are looking about another 3 to 4 weeks, most probably.
3 to 4 weeks. Okay.
Thank
4
you.
weeks. Thank you. Right. Now we'll move on. Let's have a. Do we have any questions from Mr. Byrne? Are you happy with everything you've heard, or would you like to say something else?
I think an important point of clarification as well, Mr. Dad's mentioned earlier that obviously we have a statutory duty to take enforcement action if we do witness a statutory nuisance from any noise. That extends as well to lighting, it extends to smoke. So anything from the premises, so any problems with the lighting at the premises, any problems with the expanded kitchen producing smoke through the extract vents, that's something that we're all prepared to deal with. Sorry?
And noise from the extraction as well.
Of course, noise from the extraction as well. So that's all covered by the same regime of legislation. I think the only question I have at this stage is obviously there's been residents raising concerns about the foldable roof. Can you explain a little bit to me? Obviously, this is something we could clarify in the noise management plan. How are we going to be managing the music when the roof is down?
We're happy to have a condition that the roof is not retracted. I don't think there's an anticipation for that to happen, and in fact there has been some soundproofing placed on it. So even though it, as it's designed, it could have been, but it's not going to be open. So we're happy to have either as a condition or in the management plan that just says that the retractable roof won't be retracted.
Okay, fine. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
I will say for clarity, though, that the windows do go down and go open, and obviously when they choose to do that, they have to obviously manage the sound or music that comes out.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Leonard, anything from you?
Thank you, Chair.
Madam, I do object to Mr. Leonard asking any questions, as he is not a party to the proceedings. If he was the licensing authority, as a responsible authority, he'd be entitled to ask questions, but as a licensing officer, he is to be neutral, independent, and not to be asking any questions.
I wasn't going to ask any questions, Chair. It's been raised by all parties about Felix, which Mr. Dadds did deal with. The current licence, the premises has recorded music, sale of alcohol, late night refreshment till midnight every day of the week with a 12:30 close. It's not licensed for live music, so that would be deregulated to 11 o'clock. But it's 12 o'clock across the board with 12:30 close.
Thank you very much. Right, I think we've. And you, my dear, you would like to say something?
Yeah, just very quickly, so that I've just clarification, actually, just for my records. In terms of conditions, or because we talked about conditions, I just wanted to make sure that I've got an accurate record. Have we agreed any conditions? Are we volunteering any conditions, or is it the agreement of the disposal management plan? This is what the condition is, like what we agreeing to.
The on page 76, we're agreeing that there should be a submission and approval of the noise management plan and a patron dispersal policy. So that's a condition. The next condition is keeping windows, doors closed during, it should say, the provision of regulated entertainment, save for ingress or egress. And you've just heard a condition regarding the retractable roof, and a condition to offer up a name and a contact number for the residents should they need to get in contact with us. I think that actually covers most of it. But obviously, in relation to conditions, if the members believe there's any additional conditions that are reasonable that can be properly evidenced as being proportional or appropriate, then obviously we would be happy to accept them.
Okay, you happy though with that?
Yes, members, if you are minded to, or you think of anything, quite rightly, you can raise it here if you've got something in mind, possibly.
Not at the
for
minute, I haven't.
consideration.
I'm waiting till we can retire, to be truthful, and have a chat.
Yes.
So in relation to this, I think as been mentioned before, this is a new application. So the application, as we said on point 24, should have permission be granted when the application is made by the new owners putting their own business model on. As we said, the current licence that exists was the operating schedule of those running the Fat Turk, which I think the concerns were. Clearly this is a fresh application with fresh undertakings, which at part 0, which is at point 24 here, where there was 14 undertakings, if you like, that we will convert into conditions on the licence, which are the undertakings that the applicant has put in. And one of the reasons that licensing didn't object to it is because they put a set of satisfactory conditions that would go in there. So in respect to that, those are the conditions there. Obviously the key part of this argument has been about a noise management policy. Where I beg on it as the impartial licensing officer who will have to regulate it and possibly enforce if any stage goes on, is that the conditions that you do see fit to put on are actually manageable and proportionate, but at the same point are actually enforceable rather than noise will not emanate from the nearest building or something. And likewise, if it goes on a noise management policy, if it's a noise management plan which envelops everything, it's something that can be agreed by the applicant and the environmental health officer. Sometimes in the past, the condition will come on to the satisfaction of the licensing office. Obviously, for all parties concerned and for the experts concerned, that noise management plan should be to the satisfaction of the environmental health team, and then obviously we would work with them to follow that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I think we've heard everything. We'd like now to retire and have a chinwag about this. We'll be, yeah. Sorry, my dear.
Chair, did you just want to? I know we're getting on for time, but in accordance with the order of business, did anybody want to wish to sum up, just final summing up?
Yeah.
Well, if no one else is not summing up, then I won't.
That's fine.
And I think leave it there, 'cause otherwise
Okay.
We just go over it all over again.
That's fine. I am just checking. I want to make sure that we're following the process. Thank you. Chair, over to you.
Lovely, thank you. So now we'll retire and we'll come back to you with our decision. Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody who's attended this evening as well, and the respectful way that it's been led tonight. Thank
Can
you.
I also just say, we're going out to, the chair's going out to deliberate with her colleagues. If you want to stay and you can do, we don't know how long it will take, but a decision would be circulated to all interested parties. So today, what the chair is going to do is she's going to deliberate. The decision would be made today, but full detail of that decision will be sent in the post to all interested parties within 5 working days. That's what we intend to do. Yes, that's right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Leonard.
Right, I will now ask Ms Sultan to read the committee's decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Is it recording?
I think so.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Thank you. The licensing subcommittee has resolved to grant the application for a new premises license, subject to the conditions contained within the operating schedule, the mandatory conditions prescribed by the Licensing Act 2003, and the following additional conditions. Number 1, a noise management plan shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the Environmental Health Services prior to the commencement of licensing activities. The approval plan shall thereafter be implemented and adhered to at all times. Number 2, a disposal policy shall be maintained and implemented to ensure the orderly and gradual dispersal of patrons from the premises. Number 3, all windows and external doors shall remain closed during the regulated entertainment, except for access and egress. Number 4, the retractable roof shall remain closed during the operating hours of the premises and shall not be opened whilst licensing activities are taking place. A full written decision, including the reasons for the subcommittee's determination and the details of any rights of appeal, will be issued to all parties within 5 working days of this hearing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'd just like to conclude to thank everybody. You've been very good. It's been very well done. There's been no arguing and fighting, and Mr. Daggs has been on his best behaviour tonight, I might say. I will say, though, if there is any contraventions and you do come back before us, there'll be no leniency at all, because this is quite serious for the residents, and also you want to build bridges. You want to become part of the community, and I think that's the best way to do it. And if you could allay our residents' feelings, you'd make me a very happy lady. Okay?
Chair, I think you mentioned the deliberation, just as an advisory, the Chair
Yes.
has indicated that she would like, if there is an opportunity for the residents to have the details of the manager who's going to be managing and have some kind of dialogue. And that's really advisory, not a condition.
Just to let you know, Madam Chairman, what will likely to happen is that we'll continue to circulate or attempt to circulate that plan to see if anyone wants to add to it or contribute. The plan is, before opening, is to invite residents over in any event to see the premises, but also to meet the team, and then try to foster or build those relationships.
I think that's most important, because they have to live there. You want to run your business and you want it to be a success, and it will be hand in hand. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody for attending. Thank you very much indeed.